Hello and welcome to GITEX Technology Week. I'm Oscar Wendell, and I'm here with Ken Rakowski and Dezso Molnar, who is our headline act at the Future Mobility Conference taking place on December the 9th at GITEX at World Trade Center, December the 6th to the 10th. Now, Dezso is one of the coolest men I have never heard of. In fact, he is the coolest. He built the first privately funded rocket. He's done everything when it comes to rockets and racing. It's just so much to cover, and we only got so many minutes. And Ken Rakowski is going to lead the conversation today.
Oscar, I think you said the right thing. He's a real polymath or a Renaissance man because there's so many things he's done. Dezso, thank you so much for being with us. We're very excited to have you on stage. And let's start with something so simple. Why does transportation need to change?
Transportation needs to change because it has been locked in a doldrum of fossil fuel burning pollution. And I think it needs to get away from that into a much higher efficiency method of travel and get people off the ground and into the air. All birds are dinosaurs. They survived the extinction, and we have another one coming. We have to prepare.
And this is not where you started off from. You actually started off as an artist, didn't you?
That's right. I've been a musician, and I started out in the in the military, also as an aviator. But I go back and forth between the music world and the science world, I should say.
But if somebody would look at what you're doing today, right today, matter of fact, a few hours ago, what were you doing a few hours ago?
I was flying in the desert with a new 360 camera for an Oculus Rift game. We're putting flight simulators into that virtual reality world so people can effectively demystify flight a little bit and get a taste of it, and also see some of these new machines that we're developing virtually prior to the fact that, building them or debuting them, I should say.
And if an insurance company would try to underwrite you, they would go, you seem to be somewhat of a risk factor. Why would they would be that?
Or they'd be very progressive. Some of us have ways of getting insurance without telling everyone. So.
Yeah, but they would see you as a risk. Why would they see you as a risk?
I would say that I have all my fingers attached. I'm not a daredevil. I'm an inventor. And so my ambition is always to make things that people might perceive as dangerous to be very safe. And so, for instance, I used to run a land speed racing team, and people said, they would always start by saying, we're crazy. And I said, hey, look, there are people that sit in an airplane with a vodka and they're going 600-700 miles an hour. They're not thinking about it. I said, my ambition was to make the same environment for my driver in that machine. And so I won't say that I'm not a daredevil, I'm an inventor. And as an inventor, I want to be able to create things that I can use and have, exceed human endurance with the machines I create.
But speed and propulsion are things that are near and dear to your heart, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah. Pretty much everything I've made since I was a kid is you kind of get inside of it and use it.
I get this. Now, what we're excited about having at GITEX is you're there to inspire us because, like you said, you're an inventor. Well, being an inventor means you have, of course, great successes, but the failures are important too, right?
The failures are important in that the function of an inventor is to understand the state of the art. And there's a lot of failures that are synonyms for what I'm doing. And they may be in similar businesses or maybe different businesses, but if you look at the construct of it, it can be very applicable to the work I'm doing. And so that's important. And it's not just my failures, but other ones. And there's a lot of tombstones on the road to this. And people just generally, when they talk about flying cars, they refer to them as just failed and hopefully and kicked down the road. But I actually look at it as, I was telling Oscar the other day, there's a lot of people who've built these machines and made them work. And just because they didn't buy big houses with the machine that they sold thousands of them, the reality is that they did make them work. And so one of the things I'm doing is, creating a gallery to show those successes. And the failures are often pretty much just in the business models.
Yeah, that's what you're going to be talking about at GITEX.
That's right. There's a competition certainly drives development, and that's never been used in the flying car space before. So that's one of the things I'm focusing on.
How do you see the future with flying cars? Will it primarily be e-mobility?
I think that, well, for me, my ambition right now is to create a zero fuel flying car. So that's my current focus. And many of the other machines are jet powered or these VTOL. I perceive them as, you know, they're solutions looking for problems. And I see a greater problem in just people having access to energy in a way that will allow them to travel freely without necessarily relying on an infrastructure for that.
And what is your plan? How do you see flying cars being integrated in urban transport?
Well, I think that I don't think there's a challenge there. I mean, if you go outside right now and you look in the sky, you'll see that there's probably nothing above you. We have an international system for traveling, which has been around since the 50s. We agreed that everyone would need to speak English. That was a vote that was taken, barely beating out German. Many of the rules for traveling in aircraft was brought in from maritime law. So you can leave some country in a boat and you get to another country. Well, you need to be able to coordinate with them. And that was something that if you get an automobile, you might have the driver's, you know, steering wheel on one side and another country something different. So it's actually more challenging with land-based, but aviation is well oiled. And there's very few vehicles. So people often jump to the question about air traffic and this perception that we're just going to have an enormous amount of traffic. But the reality is it's a great opportunity for the individual to get into it now because there is no problem and there may never be a problem. And there is a well-oiled worldwide infrastructure for flying and lots of airports, and they're happy to meet you when you show up.
So who's the ideal customer for a flying car? I mean, what's the use case? Flying from Philadelphia to New York on a regular basis, or how often would you be flying with your flying car, do you think, once this is operational?
Well, I'm getting rid of my car that I've been driving for the last 15 years. I'll be replacing that with my new one. So first and foremost, this is going to be primary form of transit for me. But the idea that you have to go again from hub to hub, if there's a train going there or a bus or somebody you can carpool with, then those are great opportunities. My ambition is to simply go off grid, you know, and basically be able to go to the places that you may not normally be able to access, and that's the real value of general aviation, is that you can go anytime you feel like in unscheduled ways where there may not be a competitive opportunity from, you know, an airliner or some other system.
Cool.
So Dezso, only a few weeks away. Of course, we're going to see you in Dubai. What are you excited to show us when we all sit down and watch you speak?
I'm most excited to debut this machine I've been working on for 5 years. I haven't shown it.
What do you mean debut it? What do you mean by that? Debut it.
I've been working on an aircraft that let's just say, as an inventor, it's good to show a vision before you have to give an explanation. And so I wait as I do development until I say, this will illustrate where I want to go. It's much easier to be able to get buy-in from people, and rather than have a devil's advocate discussion, to say, look, I'm committed to this. This is where it's going, and then decide if there's a fit and maybe open some minds to a different approach. So that's something, as I said, I haven't shared that publicly, but I think it'll be time for that in Dubai.
So at GITEX, right, we're going to see this mind craft idea that you've been putting together. I don't know what we're going to call it. Do you have a name for it?
I call it the street wing, and I'm so close to it. I don't know if anyone's going to like it, but it's what I'm doing. So it's the challenge of any artist. And, you know, Oscar, you asked, it's like, as a musician, what I do is like, we make songs or whatever, and we make them as well as we can, and we just put them out. We don't watch for them. And that is, I say, look, the only revenge is good art, or the only, the only goal is good art. Let's just say that. So I just do my best with it, and then I'll put it out, and wherever it goes, it goes. But I'm looking forward to showing it at your event.
And that's it right there. Yeah, so if people want to find out more, Oscar, of course, to see Dezso and all these other great speakers, where do they go?
Dubai World Trade Center, December 6th through the 10th. But before we leave you, I just can't help asking a little bit about when you built the rocket at 19. That was the first privately funded solo manned rocket.
Your question died out, but I think you're asking about the rocket I worked on with Bob Truax. Yes, so I started working with Bob, I think, in 1984, and I heard about him when I was probably 11 or 12 years old. And I was captivated by a guy who had a very strong background as a former Navy captain running the rocket program in the United States, Polaris missile and other things in the 50s. And so I had a chance to meet him, and I saw the work that he was doing, and I knew I could physically build it better than he was doing. He was a scientist, but not a great craftsman. And so what I was doing at the time with aviation repair was completely applicable. And so I worked with him for several years, and then we sold it to the United States Naval Research Labs, and we got a contract, and we basically went from, you know, a laughing stock to something where people were trying to buy stock. And that kicked off the private space industry from where people thought this is illegal, immoral, or impossible. And we illustrated that it was. And one of the primary things we wanted to do was shut down the space shuttle. And you can pretty much show a direct line to that's something we did.
Did you fly with that rocket?
It was originally built for Evel Knievel to go into space. He was the client. He dropped a whole $1,000 to do that. And when we sold it to Naval Research Labs, we did a lot of testing with it, and they just did so much brutal testing on it to see as a vehicle. It wound up exploding. It was in a corrosive environment in Port of Redwood City, actually, in Silicon Valley. It was a Silicon Valley company. And so no one did ride in it. But now there's a company called Astra also in the Bay Area. And they directly lifted our ideas. They've given us, you know, some heads up that we were very relevant at the time, and we're still a relevant idea. Now they're launching regularly, I think, out of Kodiak, Alaska, short rockets.
And that's where we should stop. Wait, that's all we should do right there. There's so much more you're going to learn from Dezso. You want to make sure you join us at GITEX to see Dezso and all these other great speakers. But as Oscar said, one of the most amazing men you have yet to meet, and you'll see him in Dubai. We're very excited to have you there, right?
We certainly are.
It'll be my first trip. I'm looking forward to it.
Dezso,
Looking forward to hosting you. Thank you.